Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you a unique example of the episode recap and thoughts videos of this channel. Rather than just being one episode, this will actually cover a good chunk of episodes. To be more specific, the first 14 episodes of Dragonball Super, the Beerus Saga. And as I've mentioned in some previous videos, I'll be doing these episode recap and thoughts for the FUNimation Dub of Dragon Ball Super, which began back in January of 2017. For those unfamiliar, the Beerus Saga is a retelling of the Battle of Gods movie, which story goes along the lines of during the 10-year time skip between after Kid Buu was defeated but before Goku meets Oob, the Destroyer, or the God of Destruction, Beerus, awakens from his long slumber and tells his assistant Whis about his dreams, which spoke of a worthy rival known as a Super Saiyan God. In the FUNimation dub, Beerus is voiced by Jason Douglas, who also voiced King Cold, South Kai, and Killa in Dragon Ball Z Kai, while Whis is voiced by Ian Sinclair. While Beerus has awakened, Bulma is throwing a birthday party for herself and has invited all of her friends and family to partake, but Goku is busy training on King Kai's planet. Beerus and Whis stop by to King Kai's planet when they know of Goku, who they find out is the one who vanquished Frieza. Well, beat him on Namek. It was really Future Trunks who actually delivered the final blow, but that's neither here or there at the moment. And Beerus proves to be insanely powerful. After Goku is beaten, Beerus goes to Bulma's party, and we find out Vegeta had an encounter with the Destroyer once before, and he's trying to make sure to placate him. But when Good Buu refuses to share his pudding with Beerus, Beerus decides to destroy the planet. Eventually, though, Goku does come back, and they learn about the ritual that will create the Super Saiyan God, which requires 5 Saiyans to transfer their energy to Goku, the one other Saiyan, meaning they need 6 in total. Thankfully, Videl, Gohan's wife, is pregnant with a 1/4 Saiyan child, so they are able to perform the ritual. Goku unlocks the Super Saiyan God form and battles Beerus. And in the end, Beerus ends up not destroying the planet because he got a good fight out of it. And then he returns to his slumber. Now, as for the differences between this retelling in Dragon Ball Super versus the movie, it's, like, the broad strokes are the same. It's just more like some of the more minor details. Like, well, I guess maybe not so minor, but it's not really a main consequence when you look at it broadly. Some examples are, rather than being at Capsule Corp, Bulma's birthday is on a yacht in the middle of the ocean, probably because it was easier on the animators, being the most likely explanation. Some other changes include Goku's first fight with Beerus on King Kai's planet has him fighting him throughout the different Super Saiyan forms of 1 through 3, rather than just jumping to Super Saiyan 3 and fighting him right there. And there are some details that are left out in the retelling, such as Pilaf and his minions. The retelling doesn't tell you why they're the age of kids now, whereas in the Battle of Gods movie, it was mentioned that Pilaf's wish on the Dragon Balls for youth was worded in a way where it accidentally reverted them to the physical bodies of children. Now, whether that's an affectionate nod or a take that to Dragon Ball GT, where Pilaf accidentally turned Goku into a kid again, leave it up to fan interpretation. Now, as for which version I like between the movie and the retelling, they both have their good and their bad. I do like the fight scenes in the movie, and understandably, because it had a better budget, the movie did have better fight scenes overall. But at the same time, there were things I did like about the retelling, such as I actually liked how Bulma's party took place on a yacht. It was a nice change of scenery from what we don't usually see from the franchise. Beerus was also a bit more hostile when he first showed up in the retelling, but then eventually mellowed out to the way he's portrayed in the movie. I liked that touch too, personally. I thought it was a nice way to kind of show how Beerus had warmed up to them somewhat, compared to when he first interacted with them, acting all high and mighty. Although, to be fair, he does have the power to back it up. And as for the cast, yeah, it was great to hear the Funimation cast again. I've been catching up with Super, so I'm familiar with where the sub is right now, but as far as actually watching the episodes directly, I decided to wait until Funimation got around to dubbing it, and my patience really was well worth it for me. I enjoyed hearing the cast again, and the Super dub being more accurate to the source material does a lot of good. That's not saying it's word for word the same, but again, it's all the important stuff is kept. Like, any changes are very minor or inconsequential. And the credits, and even in interviews, Sean Schimmel, Goku, King Kai, and Nails Funimation voice artist, has mentioned that Toei Animation actually has to approve of changes in the scripts. So if there are any changes, again, it's actually approved and it doesn't interfere with the story. It's nothing along the lines of Bardock is a brilliant scientist, or Mercenary Tao was a general in the Red Ribbon Army, or Gero was the leader of the Red Ribbon Army. It's nothing like that. Like, they still keep the last time on Dragon Ball whatever and find out on the next Dragon Ball whatever. A line that wasn't in the sub version, but again, I personally have nothing against that. Some people are bothered by that, but I never was. I just felt like it's inconsequential. It doesn't hurt the show in any way, and I feel it was just to feel like those old radio serials from ye olden days. Oh, I kind of went on it. Oh, and speaking of those narrations, it's unique that Doc Morgan, who was the narrator in Dragon Ball Z Kai, actually returned to play the narrator in Dragon Ball Super. Now, this is unique because in the past, Funimation had generally chose a different narrator for each entry. To give a few examples, Bryce Armstrong was the narrator for classic Dragon Ball. Kyle Hebert eventually became the narrator for Dragon Ball Z. And Andrew Chandler was the narrator for Dragon Ball GT. It seems like it was actually requested by the executives that Doc Morgan reprise the role of the narrator in Dragon Ball Super. And I'm cool with that. I think he does a good job. I liked all the narrators, though, so it's no biggie for me. As far as other Funimation cast notes I should make, it's mostly the same from the previous shows. The only big change so far is that Trunks, or I should say Kid Trunks to be more specific, is now played by Alexis Tipton rather than Laura Bailey, and by extension, the Trunks half of Gotenks. Now, the reason why that is because of schedule conflicts. Put simply, Laura Bailey has become a big name for the video game side of voiceovers, so her schedule has become much more hectic. But I think because it's video games, that's probably why she was able to come back for the recent video games like Xenoverse 1 and Xenoverse 2. But when it comes to a long-running, ongoing show, yeah, her schedule just couldn't allow it. And it was unfortunate. She does really have a affinity for the role of Trunks. But to be fair, Alexis Tipton does do a great job as a understudy for Laura Bailey. Her Trunks sounds a lot like it. I guess if you listen closely, you can probably tell the difference, but if you're just like generally listening to it, they sound more or less the same. So While I do greatly miss Laura Bailey in the role, I do commend Alexis Tipton for doing a great job filling in for Laura Bailey while her schedule is as filled as it is. And some of the cast members that weren't in DBZ Kai have returned for Dragon Ball Super. Brad Jackson returns to play Ulan, although he did get to come back for DBZ Kai's Boo Saga, I should mention. And for Meredith McCoy returns as Android 18. She wasn't able to play her in Kai because of schedule conflicts, and I'm quite glad to see Meredith McCoy back. Nothing against Colleen Klinkenbeard, who played Android 18 in DBZ Kai, but I do prefer Meredith McCoy's performance for the role. I feel it complements Chuck Huber's Android 17 better, and I thought that it kind of just fit in more with Android 18 being a bit more guarded or more serious. As I know some people thought Meredith McCoy sounded flat, but I didn't get that impression, just more guarded. I feel Meredith McCoy has been able to emote as Android 18, some of her work in GT's Super 17 Saga being a good example of that. And as for which version I prefer between the movie and the retelling, even with their strengths and weaknesses, I might actually give the edge to the retelling, because I liked the expansions that it did, like Beerus's personality coming more into how he was in the movie rather than just always being like that. I liked the yacht scene. But again, I do concede that the movie's fight scenes were better done in comparison. As for which version, I guess that's really up to the viewer. If you want to see the movie version or the retelling, I leave it up to you. Just be aware that there are some differences between them. So now that we finished the Beerus Saga, the next one we're going to do is for a whole saga as well, rather than just episode by episode. So you can expect that tomorrow. Take care, and until next time.